Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic Tac Taiko. If there's one thing a taiko player can never work on enough, it's their grip. So let's go and do that right now. When it comes to grip, there's 4 things you can work on: strength, dexterity, flexibility, and positioning. Positioning would be things like where your finger is, where your thumb is, where your wrist is rotated. I cover that when I go into my deep dives, so we're not doing that today. I'm also not going to talk about flexibility because I'm saving that for my stretching series. So today it's all about strength and dexterity. For today's video, I have some tools and toys that I'll be working with. If you don't have some of these handy, I will be giving you substitutions that you might find around your house. First up, the stress ball. The stress ball is the simplest thing you can think of. It's a ball and you squeeze it. These used to be everywhere. Every company would put a logo or a slogan like this one and give them out as swag. They're not as common nowadays, but if you're still looking for one, you could probably find it at office supply stores. I know a few that have bins full of these with their logos on them. Now, most people know what to do with this. You pick it up and you squeeze it. But I think we can take it a little further than that. So you start with the basic, which is sort of the claw, where you take the tips of your fingers and thumbs and you squeeze it in. It's essentially making a clawing motion in towards your palm. That's the default. But you can also do what I call the panini press, which is bringing the fingers down towards the palm. But when you do this, try to make sure that the fingers have an even amount of force rather than just mostly using your stronger fingers, because then your weaker fingers don't get enough. So squeeze, but try to make sure that all the fingers are working. Another version of this I call the puppet, where you're using the top 4 fingers like you did with the panini press, but now you're squeezing into your thumb as if you were operating, say, a puppet. Same thing as before, try to make sure that all the fingers are pressing down. Now, variations of this are to only use one of the 4 fingers, and this becomes a lot of work. And you can choose the tip of the finger or the knuckle of the finger. You'll get a different workout. And as you go closer to the pinky and get to that last finger, you'll feel the lack of strength compared to the first finger. Now, you can also use both of your hands, squish between your palms, pretty simple. If you just do this over and over, you're eventually going to get kind of sore. So I like to do a squeeze and a little bit of a rotate, squeeze, rotate the other direction. Just kind of helps keep the hands not burning as quickly. And just like my clapping video, there's different ways that you can put your hands together. So maybe one hand on top, maybe hands aside, but different angles, play with that. And then you can also do fingers to fingers, which I find actually pretty difficult because my hands want to rotate around the ball. I'm not trying to squeeze this flat, I'm just trying to get a good compression and work my fingers and hands and wrists. Now, if you don't have a stress ball, you can use a towel as a substitute. What I like to do is start with an edge and then just kind of crumple it and then squeeze that. It's not as good, but it still gives you a little bit of resistance and you can still do all of the things that you were doing with the squeeze ball. I don't recommend having a nice fold and doing it. It doesn't have the same shape, or it doesn't seem to fill the space as well as when it's just sort of a messy clump to squeeze. Next on our list is the gyro ball. The gyro ball is essentially exercise equipment, and I'm assuming most of my viewers aren't going to have one handy. If you're interested, you could probably find one at a nearby equipment store. Essentially, you have a gyroscope encased in a plastic shell. The gyroscope is weighted on one side. There's an exposed part that you get going, momentum will turn the gyroscope, and then you get it fast enough, and it takes some practice to get here, and then you eventually get your wrist rotation synced up to the velocity, which will then maintain the momentum, or if you choose, you can increase it and make it faster. Now, I can get this up to speed, and I will in a second. You won't get to see how much effort it takes to keep it in my hand, but it requires a lot of grip, it requires a lot of hand strength, and it requires a lot of wrist strength to keep this thing from flying out of my hand. It does get loud, so at least you'll hear that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speed up the next section, which is me attempting to get this up to speed, and then I'll come back when I've got it going. Okay, so here we are with the noisy little gyro ball. I've got it at a moderate speed, but it's still requiring me to have a pretty good grip. And in about a minute of this and my hand's gonna burn. So it's a good workout, even just doing this. I'm gonna stop for a second so you can see the gyroscope spinning, hopefully. You can see that thing and all the force it's got. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit more. And the cool thing is that I can switch directions, but continue the momentum. And eventually, I can hand off to the other hand, so this one can hurt instead. But anyways, this is your gyro ball. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I can't think of a substitute for this. So if you don't have one, you may be a little out of luck. They're worth getting, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on them. Okay, on to the next section while I figure out how to get this thing to stop. And finally, free weights. When it comes to weights, be careful. Go slower. If you have more than one weight, use the smallest weight possible at first and listen to your body. I'm going to demonstrate most of these drills with my 10-pound weight, but use what's comfortable for you. First off, you're going to let your arm hang and rotate. This is slightly a little flexibility, but you're going to not let it go all the way to maximum flexibility. You're going to let it go, and then when you feel a little bit of tension, a little bit of resistance, you're going to push it back and forth. So it's like a little bit of ping pong. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. The push back to the other direction is where you want to emphasize. But this isn't about speed. You don't have to go really fast because eventually something is going to snap. Next up is the hang. I want my fingers to wrap around the bulb of the weight. If the bulb is too big or my hand is too small, then I can still grab it using finger strength alone, but ideally I'm going fully underneath around the bulb. And I'm just going to let it hang. That's it. It doesn't matter what rotation my wrist is at, but you may feel that there's a little bit of tension in the wrist because you have to bend it in order for the weight to hang down straight. So an alternative way of doing this is to bend the elbow a little bit, make the wrist a little straighter, but it will add more tension, especially in your forearm and in your thumb. Still, this is a good alternative to doing it straight hang down. Both of them are viable. Next up is catch and release. Now you want to be careful with this one. This is when we start getting into dropping it and denting the floor territory. So you're grabbing it, it doesn't matter where exactly, but you're going to let go and re-grab. I'm not trying to throw it into the air, I'm just trying to let go, maybe a little bit of lift. Now the alternative version, I keep wanting to say alternation, the alternative version of this is to do it with the hang, the grip this way. This is where you want to be really careful, and this is where you want to have padding. Even if you have carpet, I would recommend padding it with pillows or towels, because if your hands are slippery or you hit it wrong, this is going to fall. Be careful when doing this. You've got weights that usually have some rounded corners and your hand is repeatedly hitting it at different angles. It's really easy to start smashing your hand into it and feel like you're getting bruised, because essentially you are smashing your hand into it. So be careful. This is not one you want to do with a really heavy weight. And the last one we're doing takes the difficulty to 11. So be careful. Be careful of your body. Be careful of your feet. Be careful of the ground or the floor underneath you. You don't need 2, but I'm going to use 2 as an example. What you're doing is flipping the weight. So you're going to have to flip and grab in the middle, because doing it with the bulbs is really risky. So it's flip and grab. You do not have to maintain that speed or any speed until you are really, really comfortable with this. Now, this is going to work the eye-hand coordination, your biceps, reaction time, and your grip strength. But again, be careful. Now, if you don't have free weights around, you can definitely find things that will substitute nicely. Get a bag, fill it with heavy objects, maybe a drink case, a bottled beverage. But not everything is going to work. Working on your grip is time well spent, and it doesn't require a lot of money or a lot of commitment. Like I said, get yourself a stress ball. It's the cheapest option here. Or maybe you have ideas for grip strength, dexterity, or even gear that you use. Let me know in the comments section below. Or if you're on the Facebook Taiko community, write a reply there. Let other people know what you do to help with your grip. So until next time, keep gripping and be well.